Nyumba Upendo, Milwaukee. And that just means we love you, Milwaukee. Welcome to the Nyumba Upendo Show on WNOV 860 AM, 106.5 FM. And Nyumba Upendo just means house of love. So welcome to the House of Love. I am your host, Dr. Kwaku Amawasi, joined by Dr. Alicia Mutri.
And I'm so happy to be back. I've been gone a couple weeks.
Hey, that's it. Well, you know, we can't get this show started without our P and P's. And what's that? It is always, as in the tradition of our elders, that we ask permission from an elder to be able to speak, to be able to bring this information to you. We've been granted permission by our mother, Helen Webb. But the other P is the prayer. And she always prays for us right before we start the show that the words we say will bless the community, bless those who listen, not just while it's live, but those who might listen to the YouTube broadcast later at some different time. And another thing what we'd like to do is we always like to put the show in the spirit of an ancestor, you know, somebody who's gone before us, who we want to remember the name. And I could think of no better person today. You know, sometimes like when somebody dies, somebody's there like the first week, the second week, and things kind of go off. And, you know, I think about our dear brother, Keon Jackson Malone. You know, it's been a few takes since we really talked about him in that manner. But I want to make sure that I give him his respect. But this is kind of like the old man show what we got in here today. So I think it fits that it's in his honor. But I want to give a loving shout out to a dear brother of mine who just died Saturday, November 16th. His name is Richard Jones. He was a preacher. He was a lawyer. He was a basketball coach, just a pillar in the community, specifically in Madison, Wisconsin. And he was a fraternity brother of mine, but he was a dear friend. And every Wednesday for our fraternity, we have something called Brother, You're on My Mind. And what we are mandated to do is to call 4 different brothers and just say, hey, brother, you on my mind. How are you doing? Give each other time and a space to be able to just say, hey, what's going on with you? Give you that safe space to be able to talk. If everything is all good, then it's all good. But if you do need something, we know we got that. But also, Jermaine, got to give shout outs to Jermaine and Carvey, who always keep the things rolling like that. But Jermaine, I got something real special that I got to do a shout out for. You got my theme music?
I got you.
Give me my theme music. I'm like Dion. Give me my theme music.
I'm nervous.
Hey, if you hear that, that's because it's my sister's Dr. Alicia Mutri's birthday on November 23rd. Give it up for her. Yeah. Her birthday is coming up. You know, we always bless. We talk about losing people. So it's so important that we give them no flowers while they're here. So I want to give you your literal and your figurative flowers. Don't get too cracked out. It's on YouTube too. Hey, mama, you see her? Mama, you looking? No. So, you know, as we I wanted to do a kind of a transition as we get with that, because sometimes when we talk about the loss of loved ones, we get into a sorrowful, but also when we lose someone, we say it's a celebration of life. And the thing is are you living a life that can be celebrated? And I'm in the room right now with multiple men who are doing things that they can say they can be given their flowers because they do things from such a selfless nature. So I want to just introduce real quickly and then kind of go into the theme of our show, because we're talking about why it's important to have fathers in the home, why it's important to have strong male figures, but also some of the struggles that we go through as male. What are some of the things that we can do? What are some of the places we can go for helping the people who listen and got a strong man in your life, how you may be able to do them? So first I want to introduce Will Holloway and Walter Cullen Jr. They are both the co-owners of co-owners of Integrated Community Education Center, consultants, And when I think about them, I'm so excited because we had Brother Holloway's wife on the show about a month ago. Yeah. And so I love to see like power couples like that. Love to see people who do things together. And both of these men are crazy good educators. You know, they've worked in the schools. They put the time in with the young children. They're still doing great work at MATC right now. It's like they do so many things in the community. And I always talk about like the heroes, like sometimes you don't always hear their names and everything what you do, but it's people who doing the work in such a hard way. So we want to just say thank y'all for, you know, joining the show, coming on. And then
appreciate y'all having us.
Yeah, we got brother Steve Hopkins from Street Life Communities. And if you know about that, what I love about them, their motto for what they do is this. They say, we're going to reduce harm and restore hope. They provide essential resources to those living on the streets.
Absolutely.
And so when I think about that now, also when we say we're doing those things, what we do is we say, hey, we ain't going to just talk about it. They say, if you want something like, especially when you hear Steve talking to SLC, You can make a donation. You can volunteer with your time because a lot of their workers come from volunteer. And they also got Amazon wish lists. So some of those who are extra blessed, you got all that stuff in your wish list and your Amazon. Make sure you do something for some other people. So what I'm gonna do, hey, we just gonna get right into it. So what I want all of y'all to do is just kind of one by one, just kind of tell the people a little bit about you and why it was important for you to be on a show like this today. We'll start with you, Steve, and then move it down.
Good morning to everybody. Peace and blessings.
Respect, King.
This is a very, very delicate topic, and it's needed to talk about. I myself can speak from experience of not having that father figure in the home and the effects of that. And I just wanted to, be a voice for the voiceless this morning. So a little bit about me. It's been about 6 years. I'm in CVI work, community violence intervention. A program director for a critical response team as well, and just happy to be here with y'all.
No, respect. I appreciate that, brother Will.
What's going on, everybody? This is Will Holloway. It was really important for me to be on this show, especially for a lot of people who didn't have a father in their life. I did have a father in my life, and he was my example, and so it's important for me to kind of shine a light on that a little bit. Just a little background on me. I spent still kind of doing it. I'm about 25 years in as an educator. Been all over the place. I'm trained as a guidance counselor, trained as a teacher. Right now I'm an advisor down at MATC, still trying to help students from high school bridge that gap between high school and college. And so that's what I'm doing right now.
Well, that's what's up.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Walt Cullen Jr. I go by Walt.
Well, okay.
I know we had a conversation earlier in there where you say your mama shouldn't get nicknames, but I call myself Walt. I've been in education for since probably like 2009. Been playing with this guy. Been basketball since I was a teenager.
Busting me up.
Yeah, nice little age gap, but look to him for a lot of wisdom. But today was like extremely, extremely special to be on this particular episode because I find myself going through a lot of reflection over my years of growing up. I know my father. My mother and my father were separated the entire time. So I really didn't get to see them in the home together. So I had to look to a lot of different figureheads within the community, whether it be a coach, whether it be a brother-in-law. I can't even say my uncles, which is sad to say. Right. Men like Holloway. And I kind of had to hodgepodge it. And then I grew up in the era where Family Matters was on. Cosby's was on, so I looked to those people as well, trying to see how they interact with different people. So I'm just elated to be in this situation to talk about it. And it's whatever I say, charge it to my heart. Today.
Mm-hmm. No, and when I think about that, that really goes into like the first question I was going to talk about is like, because we got two younger men, in the room right now. Mm-hmm. We talk about like what makes a good man. And what you said was so important because when I think of social learning, it's about what I see, what I hear, what I experience. Maybe not what I experienced it always directly, but what I was able to see indirectly, just kind of going back along the road. Like what makes up a good man for you? And what were some of the things that allowed you to be, the man you are today?
Man, so society creates a lot of socially constructed norms for it. The media in which you watch also does it as well. But you also wrestle with yourself in terms of how you conceptualize it and your perspective on it. So I think a lot of what I tried to do was to take the good pieces that I was like, that actually makes sense. That don't make sense. Not saying I didn't bump my head.
Oh yeah, we all do.
Obviously, we have some great role models that may do some bad things. That don't make them a bad person.
Come on.
So what I've learned was that over the time, I just brought personalities and mannerisms from different people into the person I am. But I always knew that I still sought the validation from my father, but I could never get it. So even to this day, when I call him, I still feel like that little boy inside or when he calls me. But I understand there are some other struggles that he's been dealing with or he's had.
Yeah. When you say that, we're just going to make a conversation. We're going to get back to it, but just chime in. But when you say that, man, my favorite episode on the Fresh Prince was when Will was like about excited to go with his dad. And he was like, man, we're going to do this. And Uncle Phil was like, man, don't get too excited because your dad was, don't talk about my dad. My daddy, you can't be my daddy. And he exploded on the man who was that example. Mm-hmm. But then when his father let him down like it was, he was like, man, why you don't love me? And he cried. And it was like, I was like, man, he must have had some real pain or something. Because that touched me in a way. And I think for every little boy, because just a little bit about us, it's like our dad and our parents were divorced, but our dad would come get us on the weekend. But it'd be some of the weekends he said, I'm coming. And don't come. You on the porch, you wait, or it's 2 hours, 3 hours, where it's just like, man, I thought I was important. I thought this was big. Like time is being wasted. And then when he come, he be drunk. And then it's like, and you know he love you, but it's like those little things. So it's like, so to like what you say, it's like you learn from the good, but you also see the stuff. You say, okay, I don't want my children to feel like. Go ahead, Will. I see you was
no,
ready
it's just
to get up there,
something that y'all spoke to, like even with the father. So even with my father being in the home, there was times my father was really distant, and I couldn't necessarily always go to my father and talk to him or whatever. So in hearing some of y'all stories about what we talking about, they're growing up too as we're growing up. So they're going through their struggles too while we're trying to get to where we're trying to get to. And so it's really important to kind of remember that part, that they have these things that they have difficulties in. And sometimes you privy to that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're not privy to that.
Oh,
my father was
so deep.
My father, when he came home from work, he went to his room while we didn't see him again until it was dinner time. Did he interact with us then? Yes. So, but after that, it was back to the room or back to wherever he was doing, because he had his own things that he was doing as an adult male. So we had to kind of try to figure it out. And so even with the father being in the home, sometimes he was a little bit distant. I couldn't always go and talk to my father about every issue because he came from a different time period, a different frame of mind or whatever. And so to bring some of those issues to him would be like, you're not going to get a whole lot out of him in regards to that. And so even with him being there, and I loved having his presence there, and I loved having him be the example. He was hardworking, honest. I never really saw him scared or fearful. And so that was like really inspiring for me, right? But how do I manifest that in my life? And I think I'm trying to do that. But again, like Walter said,
like you said, try. We all
trying, path, right? But it's still a hodgepodge of things that I saw that I took from not only from my father, but other great men that was around during that time. So.
And we always talk about the show. We want to give information, but right away you jumping off telling me about strategies. If you don't have the person in your life, what are you going to do about it? And you have given one strategy already. Seek it out in other people. And then guess what? You just told me that you customize your manhood.
Absolutely.
By the great things that were in your life.
Absolutely.
But you also took it and said, there's some things that went on that I saw that wasn't so nice. That's still a part of your creation, right? Because that's things that I don't want to do as well, right? So I appreciate that, because again, we want to be able to provide information, but what are the strategies that we've got to be able to think about?
Steve.
I had a unique situation. I didn't meet my father until I was a grown man. I was 26. Mm-hmm. So from birth all the way up to 26, I used to have those questions. I would talk to my mother like, what's going on with him? And after a while, I just got to the point where I was probably about like 13, 14, where I was just like, I'm not going to ask no more questions. Yeah. I think one of the best things that a father should be able to do and has to do is be a communicator. Yeah. That piece that y'all was just talking about, that, fathers go through things. Mm-hmm. Like nobody's perfect. But at the same time, I think if you could be present with your child and explain those things that you've been through, I think that could be effective. So I say that communication piece is one of the most important.
You know what? It was funny. Like while y'all was talking, I was thinking about it. I don't know if you ever read a book. It was called The Pact. It was about these 3 dudes from New Jersey. Heard of it. And when they was young, they was like, you know what? Their lives just weren't going good. They was in the bricks. They made a pact with each other. We all gonna become doctors. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of their fathers went in their life. And then they had success with this book and afterwards. But then they wrote another book afterwards talking about, man, I needed my dad. I didn't recognize how much I did. I would say it because they was like, we go through phases as young men. It's like, first, you love your dad. Even if he ain't around, you had this ideal of who he is. You love him. You do everything. Then the next thing, if he's not what he's supposed to do, we make excuses. Well, like he couldn't do this because of this or couldn't do this because of that. You do it. And then after that falls, you get sad, you get depressed because you're like, why? Like, what's the thing?
What did I do?
But then the last stage is like the F you stage. F you, I don't need you, forget you. I'm going to do this without you. I'm going to show you I can be a man. But the 5th stage that they taught us was that reconciliation. Right. It's like, because for any brother just out there listening, say, I don't need my father. I ain't never, man, we do. That's a hole if you don't got that. My dad died, and even with some of the frailties that he had, not having him now, man, that's a big hole and it can't be replaced. You
Absolutely.
can have uncles, you can have surrogate fathers and whatnot, and it helps. But the love of that person who's there is so real. So what I want to ask, and this is just organic conversation. If you listening to a young brother listening to it, let's say somebody's grandmother or mother is listening to this, and they say, my son need to be hearing this, my grandson need to hear this. What are the things, and Dr. Mutri kind of alluded to it, are you saying make up a good man? Like what advice would you give to that young brother who might be struggling with not having that man in his life and say, but do this, young bro?
Well, I think Steve just talked about it, trying to communicate. I noticed in with my son, like I just talked about, he was a little distant, and I could go to my father and talk to him about some things, but I was uncomfortable with other things because I didn't know how he was going to react. He was a hard man. And so sometimes it'd be like, yeah, I don't know, maybe I talk to moms about this. But I always want to try to be open for my kids to be able to communicate with them because they are going through things that you've gone through, right? And so you want to make sure you're trying to help them work their way through that. Sometimes I try to do that by listening to friends, or I try to do that by watching a different example. And then it always came back to like, dang, I'm all over the place, right? So I needed somebody to go to be able to settle me, to be like, you're going to be just fine. Just try to do it this way. Boom, 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 boom. And I try to do that for my son right now. I try to also do it for my daughter. So I just being able to communicate with them, but also just try to give them an example of it being accountable, living by your word. If you say something, you want to make sure that you're actually doing what you say. You don't want to be a hypocrite in front of them.
Say that again. Man.
You don't want to be a hypocrite in front of them because, again, it leads to, even with the father being in a home, some of them feelings that you just ran through. He ain't really what he's saying he is, and you start to feel a little bit of resentment in regard to that. And so always trying to be true to your word. And even when you can't be true to your word, you still got to communicate as to why that didn't happen the way it should have. So just a few things from me.
Go ahead, brothers. What?
That piece he just talked about that ties into integrity and dignity, just having your word and standing on what you're saying. Young men and young women pay attention to if you keep your word. And if you don't, they'll be the first to, chastise you about that, especially with some of these at-risk young men and young women. They got to know that you love them for real. So it's just about, doing what's best when nobody is looking, because somebody is always watching. And that's how you got to carry it.
Oh, I love that. And I'm an educator as well. We didn't talk about that. And I think about the teachers that I'm working with. I'm like, you can talk to your students all day, but they're watching what you're saying.
Absolutely.
So if you're doing one thing, but they see you doing something, your cred, they say your street cred for them, it's gone.
You're not real. You're not real.
And so then when you want to try to have a relationship, you want to try to teach me, it's not the same. Matter of fact, I may even check out on you. So I think that's a really cool piece. I want to just add one more thing. You had talked a little bit. I'm trying to merge the two things that you said. You talked a little bit about being the communicator. You talked a little bit about your father being one that wanted to stay in the room right away when he gets home. I want to just say, I agree. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to go to the room, but I go back to what you're saying is, if you could communicate it, to be able to say, I'm going in the room right now. And I'm saying this because this is exactly what goes on with my husband. When he comes home from work, he needs to decompress. He needs to deal with the stuff he's dealt with. He needs to do that. And that's okay. But you should just let people know.
Absolutely.
Hey, listen, this is a great conversation, but you hear the music. That means we got to pay some bills. We got to take a break. But I hope you enjoying the show. WNOV 860 AM, 106.5 FM. Keep listening to Nyumba Upendo. We will get you on the other side. Did the Google sound? Okay. It didn't come in. Keep listening because that sound that you listening for is gonna come in. We're gonna check you out on the other side. We love you, Milwaukee.
I've been waiting for a long time, gotta do it. And won't let nothing hold me down, gotta do it. Because I'm in
the holidays. And holiday trips. And holiday toys. And holiday bonding. And it all comes together in a Chevrolet.
Find your red tag. Get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Silverado 1500 pickups. Plus, get $3,750 total value on this Silverado when you trade in an eligible vehicle. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
The holidays. And holiday trips. And holiday toys. And holiday bonding. And it all comes together in a Chevrolet.
Find your red tag. Get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Silverado 1500 pickups. Plus, get $3,750 total value on this Silverado when you trade in an eligible vehicle. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
The holidays. And holiday trips. And holiday toys. And holiday bonding. And it all comes together in a Chevrolet.
Find your red tag. Get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Silverado 1500 pickups. Plus, get $3,750 total value on this Silverado when you trade in an eligible vehicle. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
The holidays. And holiday trips. And holiday toys. And holiday bonding. And it all comes together in a Chevrolet.
Find your red tag. Get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Silverado 1500 pickups. Plus, get $3,750 total value on this Silverado when you trade in an eligible vehicle. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
The holidays. And holiday trips. And holiday toys. And holiday bonding. And it all comes together in a Chevrolet.
Find your red tag. Get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Silverado 1500 pickups. Plus, get $3,750 total value.
Will, I'm glad you're here. Some business came up I got to handle. So we're going to have to put our trip on hold. You understand?
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Just for a couple of weeks.
I understand.
Maybe a little longer.
Yeah, whatever.
Look, I'll call you next week and we'll iron out the details. Okay?
Yeah.
It was great seeing you, son.
You too, Lou.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Will.
You know what? Actually, this works out better for me. You know, the Slimmies of summer come to class wearing next to nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Will, it's all right to be angry.
Hey, why should I be mad? I'm saying at least he said goodbye this time. I just wish I hadn't wasted my money buying this stupid present.
I'm sorry. If there was something that I
Hey,
could
you know
do.
what? You ain't got to do nothing, Uncle Phil. Hey, ain't like I'm still 5 years old, you know? Ain't like I'm going to be sitting up every night asking my mom, when's daddy coming home, you know? Who needs him? Hey, he wasn't there to teach me how to shoot my first basket, but I learned, didn't I? Hey, I got pretty damn good at it too, didn't I, Uncle Phil?
you did.
Got through my first day without him, right? I learned how to drive. I learned how to shave. I learned how to fight without him. I had 14 great birthdays without him. He never even sent me a damn card. To hell with him! I ain't need him then and I don't need him now.
Will.
Nah, you know what, Uncle Phil? I'm gonna get through college without him. I'm gonna get a great job without him. I'm gonna marry me a beautiful honey, and I'm gonna have me a whole bunch of kids. I'm gonna be a better father than he ever was. And I sure as hell don't need him for that, because ain't a damn thing he could ever teach me about how to love my kids. How come he don't want me, man?
When we hear that, those are all them stages we talked about. I love my daddy, even though he messed up. I love him. Then the excuse is like, no, it's okay. He messed up before, but he gonna do it this time. Then it's the sadness, the depression. Then it's the F you. But the one thing, and this is what I want our conversation to come in, is he had an Uncle Phil.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What if you don't got an Uncle Phil though? Talk on that.
And if you ain't got an Uncle Phil, you all the way bad. To be honest with you, if you don't got any strong man to look up to, it's just so much of a loss for a young man or a young woman growing up, especially in the conditions that we come from. I remember when I first seen that scene and how classic it was. It was like one part of it was triggering and the other part of it was inspirational, especially when he got to speaking like, no matter what, I'm going to still be a man's man. I'm still going to take care of my kids. I'm going to take care of my woman. I'm going to grow up and basically be better than you.
Man, if you don't have an Uncle Phil, if you don't have a figurehead that's could be that stronghold for you, it's definitely going to be difficult. And what you'll find yourself doing, and I can relate to it, is you get a group of friends that you end up trying to live life together and try to figure out what it is to, persevere through these things, be a man, be nice to a young lady, how to carry yourself. But we know that when we're young, we have those impressionable minds. So our friends might want to go left, but if we don't have the mental fortitude to be like, you know what, I'm going right, like that's not right, then you will succumb to the same things that we continue to see throughout our society, unfortunately. But I know that over the years, developing that calm disposition in terms of dealing with my son and dealing with my children, and really trying to help him think it out and me thinking it out in real time, and even being vulnerable to tell my son, my wife, my daughter, like, hey, I'm not really feeling it right now. My bad for getting that loud. I didn't really mean it. I'm just not in that space. But being able to come back to that. So I really tried to, Uncle Phil was a man.
One of those things you said you learned.
Man, for sure. So
because he used to knock people out on the show too.
What?
Yeah,
You mess with his boys. He going to the police
out,
station. You pull out the lawyer card.
Pool hall.
Absolutely.
Bring out Lucille.
That is right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Don't mess with my boys.
For sure.
I mean, I just looking at that, in being in education and working with so many young men, being in that situation, it's just, it's heart wrenching. Like, you see it over and over and over again, and you try to do what you can to be able to help them get to that next level or get to that next stage. And so it's for me, that's exactly what I go back to thinking about, and like from my upbringing or whatever, how fortunate I was to just have access to my father all the time. When it's so many people that don't. Like Walt just spoke to it, like he had a group of friends that he could even tap in with, and some of our students, some of our kids, they don't have that. And it's just really, really hard in some of those instances. And so when you see that, you see some of these kids and they're extra tough and they can't really speak to a man. But that's because no man has really ever made that effort to put that arm around them and tell them, you know what, you don't got to do it this way. Let me try to show you something different. Let me try to show you how you actually would go through and do this or whatever. So it's really imperative for us to see that and recognize that with a lot of our young men, especially with what's going on in our city and around our country right now. Like, really putting our arm around some of these guys and being like, look, let me walk you to a different route. Let me show you a different perspective. Let me show you something different.
See, that's what it's all about. Hey, I just want everybody to know who listened, because I know y'all heard that gobble, gobble, gobble. And we want you to know that somebody did win. We want to give Michelle Glenn her props. We want to say, hey, that money, that turkey is yours. And we want to thank Desalyn Smith from United Garden Homes. They are our wonderful sponsors that made this possible. So, Michelle, where that came from, United Garden Homes. We want to thank Desalyn Smith. And it's like, I hated like to break up our conversation when talking about this, but I think but that's what this station is. It's the voice. It's like, we know Thanksgiving is coming. Absolutely. And one of the stressors that men have sometimes is that financial stressor. That $100 to somebody, man, it could mean the world. And we just never know. And that's what I like about SLC, because it's like, we gonna do our time, our talent, our treasure. And so, and what you was going on, it is so big. It was like, when we don't have something, we don't understand how we can stand in the gap.
Right.
For somebody else. Like, if that person ain't there, that father ain't there, you don't know what you putting your arm around a boy, as you were saying, might take him from, like, my dad used to tell me, don't take but 1 second to destroy your life. And in that 1 second you do, you done saved a life. Now you saving lives literally out there, man. Talk about like them times where somebody need that man's loving, masculine loving touch.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of the young men and young women that we deal with, I'm glad the brother had brought that point up. It's like, they'll come off like, really, like, are you really here for me? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm so used to people just not being there, especially that father figure being there, is like, how can I respect you? You have to go about earning their respect and really showing them that. And to the point what Walt was talking about earlier, you look up as you grow up, and then you don't have that father figure. You kind of create a circle, and before you know, you looking up at your circle like, all of us ain't got no father figure. It's kind of like the blind leading the blind. Come on. Yep. So it's very, very important just to, and this is for all men. I always say this, like, I don't have children biologically, but even if you don't have children biologically, you got to step up to the plate, put your arms around somebody. You know what I'm saying?
I love Andre Lee Ellis because he said, I might not be your birth dad, but I'm your earth
Absolutely.
dad. And I think that's one of those things.
I want to bring the female voice to the table real quick.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to think about that. I as I was listening to you, I think about the sisters on the line that says, well, the dad wasn't there, but I did this and I did this.
Right.
And I'm trying to fill the gap by doing this. And I want to go on the record to say, as much as we try to fill the gap, it truly is not filled all the way. And so my plea to the ladies that are listening today to say that you are doing your best to fill that gap. But I'm asking you personally, if you don't know who that Uncle Phil is in the children's lives that you have, go and seek out the Uncle Phils. They're out there, but you got to go out there and seek them. That's another strategy.
But no, you know, it is. That's one of the things like that always gets me. Like it irks me like when I see a mother get a Father's Day card, and not because she's not a super mother, because I think it takes a woman to make a complete man to give us that balance.
Right.
But it's like when you do that, what you almost do is like discount, like, okay, your daddy ain't here, but we don't need him. You got no, you're not my mama and my daddy. You my mama, and you the best mama. You a great mama.
Right.
But it's some things you can teach me, and I think you kind of went into it a little bit. Will, it was like, I tell my people, I said, I'm a man with many flaws. So if I'm the only man that teach my sons, even with me being in their life, they going to have every flaw I got. And I want them to be better than me. So I want them to have a Steve. I want them to have a Ward. I want them to have a Will, a Jermaine, a Carvey, a Malachi. I want them to have other men in their life. And I say Malachi, he's a student back here.
Right.
But he goes to the same school as my son.
Okay.
So my son is looking up to him, even if he don't know it.
Right.
So it's like, you need these people to understand that even if you younger, you still a role model. You still an example.
For sure.
Yeah.
That diversity is extremely key. And like she said, it would resonated with me is that I really had a strong mother. Shout out Megan Cullen.
Oh, come on. Say that name one more again.
Megan Cullen. Megan Cullen. I got to make sure I give her her proper flowers and just do. She was that person in terms of just always being there. Never missed a beat, but she always, like you said, she found strategy. So I was in Big Brothers Big Sisters. I was in baseball. I was in basketball.
Was you in Beckham Stapleton?
I played Beckham State. Actually,
shout out to James Beckham.
Yeah, shout out to James Beckham. I actually threw a no-hitter there. Northwest Little
Rest
League
in
and all
peace,
that.
Mr. Beckham.
NCSL, I had Harriet Evans. I had William Nicholas. I had Kevin Kabilski. I had a lot of different individuals that my mom put me in front of.
That's the hodgepodge you was talking about.
You see what I'm saying?
Customization.
There you go. And I think that's another reason that helped me as a man to appreciate diversity of thought. And like you were saying, that's why we can learn from all these different men and different people here. And young men need to do that. And we were fortunate enough, and a lot of it, you were doing it right in the grass, where you were in the streets with it. And I really appreciate that. We were in the educational system with it. So a lot of times I would take a lot of those young boys under the wing, especially if I seen them and it was like these behavior. They may act different in Miss Claire's class, but when they came to Mr. Cullen's house, you knew what it was. I need you to walk this line with me. I need to show you some of these things, and I would take that social effort. But it was also sometimes to the expense of my family.
Yeah.
That's fact. Well, what about the rest of the other two? I'm just curious about whether somebody in your life, similar to what he said, that you pulled from, that you kind of, that helped create who you are.
So in my peer group, two of my friends, shout out to James Evans and to Robert Bly Sr. They had their fathers in their lives too. So when I went to their house, it was always rules. It was always, that father was always going to be there to kind of stand on you. They're going to let boys be boys, but they always was there to kind of pull everybody back in. And so for me, they were always there. Even when my father wasn't there, I was at my guy Chubb house, and constantly Robert Bly Sr. was on us about whatever we was doing.
Robert and Ramel.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And then my
they
guy,
went to Whitewater, all of the Bly's. Yeah, those is my guys. And there's some good dudes.
Absolutely. No question about it. And so, that's who I grew up with, James Evans Sr., my guy James Evans or whatever. We be
not
at
from
his
good
house.
times now.
Not that one. We do say dang James a lot. But, no, not that one. But yeah, just a strong foundation with those guys. And then another guy we grew up with, Quentin Perkins. His father, Jim Perkins, was always around for us too. And so I always kind of had that, which was kind of an anomaly, you know, in some respects or whatever, when I looked around in the landscape where a lot of people that kind of made fun of us for having fathers in our lives or whatever. But I never took that as a slight or whatever, because I loved my father and needed him to be around. But I kind of wanted to kind of touch back on something you said in regards to the mothers. Sometimes when you are a strong mother like that, you can inadvertently condition your son to not trust men, to not want to be around men. So you gotta be careful with that. Not to say that the mothers aren't doing a good job, because they are. A lot of mothers standing by themselves in a lot of these instances, because the men are just not around in some cases. But you got to be careful, because you can inadvertently teach them how to not trust and how to be hateful of this situation. So it's sometimes, when I know you run into it, sometimes when you see these guys, they so hardened by their experience and the trauma that they experienced, that it's hard for them to step over that line and say, okay, I'm gonna trust this guy. Right. So you really got to put a lot of things in front of them for them to be able to say, you know what, I think that's a good dude right there. You know, I think he really does care. And so over the course of time, just working with so many students, guidance counseling, them telling me the story about what was going on, you know, you see these hard dudes and you talk to them about some of the stuff they go and they cry, and it's like, wow, this dude is the toughest amongst the toughest, and all of a sudden they break down because you didn't struck that chord with them, and so they really are hurting and going through something traumatic. And so just be careful is all I would say in that regard. That, like, you don't condition them to believe that they don't need men.
So when I think about this, I think about us as men and the stresses we carry. We had talked a little bit about that. As a professional man, you got that work-life balance, the financial stresses, the emotional stuff. Even we go back to the Will Smith, I was like, what happened to Lou that make him like this, where you got this great son, and you want to do good, but you can't. What's in you that was there? So, like, what are some of the stresses that you see amongst some of the men that you know? And then what are some of the strategies that they use to kind of help themselves better? This is specifically, now we're talking to the men out here. You know, it's like we all hurting in some form or fashion. Right. And these are some things I've seen work, or maybe some things I've done, or some things I'm still tripping with, but I need some help. And maybe by us just having a conversation. Heck, if you listening at 444-5253, you call in with some suggestions too. Steve, what's on your heart?
I think the biggest thing in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with most men, no matter the nationality, is that being able to put some food on the table.
Come on. The basics.
If you can't produce for your family and you waking up every morning with that stress on your mind, it's a 90% chance you're going to take a penitentiary chance. Mm-hmm. And that's not really going to be good for your family. But you don't want to look at your children every day like, I can't even put no food on the table. What can I do for y'all? You know, so I think the biggest thing is
it make us desperate, make us do some things like you said.
It turns you into a desperate man. And, you know, when you're a desperate man, you may do some things that you don't want to, but if you got to feed your family, you'll take that chance. You're going to
do what you got to do.
And ultimately it affects the family negatively, you know. So,
and I agree wholeheartedly with what he just said. I think also, just to add to that, a lot of men, because of that, are suffering in silence. They're not really communicating with other people in regards to what they're going through or the anxiety that they might feel in regards to that. It's tough sometimes. For me, my father raised us to be really, really independent. So to ask for help was sometimes a difficult thing for me, you know, to go to somebody else and be like, look, I don't know how to do this. Oh, you had a father in the crib. How you don't know how to do that? And so it's just like, you get to that area where it's just like, well, I don't really want to ask nobody because I don't want the embarrassment. I got pride and this and this and that. And so you don't want to ask somebody about it. But it's really important that we talk to one another about what's going on, because Steve might have the same experience as me, or he had something similar. And he worked his way through it by doing prayer, by doing reflection, by exercising, by doing anything, you know, talking to people in regards to what's going on, you know, finding somebody, an example to look to and be like, well, this is the guy that kind of walked me through some of these things or whatever, and I'm going to take you to him so he can kind of talk to you about that same kind of stuff. And so without being able to open your mouth and communicate it, because like I said, a lot of us suffer in silence in regards to this stuff. You know, there's a societal norm that we're supposed to be the strong, silent type. We're supposed to know how to do these things, right? As men, it's just, you fall into that category and you're supposed to go. You're just supposed to go, right? But what if you don't know how to do those things? And so you need to be able to talk to somebody who's done it to be able to say, okay, now I got a framework from which I can go from, and then you start from there.
You know, go ahead.
And I agree with both. both gentlemen, and especially Steve, in terms of like, just being able to provide. That's one of the biggest things. And then, men will go out there and they'll break their back to try to provide. So maybe 2-3 jobs.
Yeah.
But guess what else
That's the
they're missing
word.
out? Now you substitute for the
That
time
balance,
with
yep.
your actual kids. You're missing games. You're missing graduations. We
Mhm.
had parents that were missing graduations when we were teaching because they had to work,
For
or they
sure.
couldn't even come get their kid
Yeah.
while they were ill because they were at work that required them not to be able to answer their
Yeah.
phones. So we deal with that.
It's so funny you said Deion Sanders getting a lot of attention from, what he's doing with Colorado, and people were like, oh, he's too flashy, he's too flamboyant. He said, you know where that came from? He said, my dad was around, but he never came to none of my games. He said, I was all-state basketball. I got drafted out of high school by the Royals. He said, my stepfather was doing this thing. He can't come. He said, my mama was at work. So when I would look out in the stands, and I know Dr. Mucci, because when your sons play, they look for you. Soon as you looking for your mama, where you at? It was a thing with Chris Paul. Now he was like, where my mama? And Deion said he was looking. He was like, I never saw nobody. He said, so I had to build something inside of me where like, I don't need nothing. I don't need nobody. And so you get this exaggerated ego, but it's a protective feature. And sometimes people see the outward stuff and then they misjudge and not knowing that's a protective feature. So the thing we use as a defense mechanism that's protecting us can sometimes be a repellent on other stuff. But then you think about my guy, Ken Genlack, is the CEO over at Serenity Inns. So we went over there as a group of fraternity brothers. And so, it's all of these like men, businessmen and stuff. And they was like, man, we want to be like y'all. We look at y'all and you do. I said, hold on. Don't put that on us. I said, we got problems just like y'all. I said, our vices might not be exactly the same, but we all got, I said, we all struggle. I don't care if we got a suit and tie on, if we got this, all men struggle at some point. And it's like, that's just true. To the point. And I think what they got a chance to see was like, oh, it's okay. And one of the things I try to tell men, I think, because I had to tell myself because I make so many mistakes, I said, like my dad, he made mistakes, but he also did some good stuff at the same time. Absolutely. He might have been drunk, but he was at my gang drunk. My friends laugh.
And he always brought home good food, too. So let's talk about that, too.
She laughing. It'd be 8 o'clock. My dad said, I'm going to get some food. And he come back at 2 o'clock. This was Speed Queen with Speed Queen.
Speed Queen.
We at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Man. But we got that food. It's like
but
that.
But did you get the shoulder and that white bread?
And so, no, I mean, and I hope people didn't overlook because you was like, man, I work out. You said I talk with my friends. It's all of these different things I do. What do y'all do personally? Because y'all are leaders in the community. What are some of the things? Because that's an extra stress. Like you got your life stressor, then trying to be a helper. That's an extra load. What do y'all do?
Yeah. I mean, you can't have no relationship. If you don't got no relationship with God, I don't feel like you can do the work. You got
to be blessed with something strong.
You got to be blessed with that prayer. Like the brother was saying, exercise, good dialogue amongst, like-minded people. Yeah. You got to keep a good support circle around you. And that's something I tell the youth, no matter how strong you are. And I'm guilty of this. Sometimes I feel like I'm so strong, like, I don't need to talk to nobody, but no, you need to talk to somebody.
Yeah, come on.
So that's the main thing, getting a good, strong support system around you. For sure.
I just still do a lot of exercise. Yeah. Play ball. I still play ball.
Yeah.
Another thing that's therapeutic for me is actually going to see my son perform in sports, getting him to his games and his practices. But also have this gentleman to the next to me. Man, we connected so long ago, but to this day, we still check on each other every day. It's a simple, it may seem like a generic text, but it turns into a whole dialogue. So we take walks at work and we talk, no matter what it is. And it's not like one-sided. My man is very verbose. Yeah. But we go back and forth all the time, and I'm hearing him out. He called me, I'm there, and vice versa. And we have other people that we can go to as well. That's very important, like Steve mentioned. But those are some of the things, and I just created my man cave downstairs.
Oh, come on.
So my wife knows when I get home,
you got to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
You're taking care of yourself, though.
But that's self-care.
But it's short-lived, though, because I got to operate upstairs, too.
Yeah, but you just got to reset for a minute, and when you do, you come back and do your duties and everything.
And I want to say something about this relationship here, too, though, because what I love about it is you got the young man giving you some kudos, but I want you to know, and I know it because I keep young folks in my life. I got older folks in my life. This is a reciprocal thing.
Absolutely.
Like, so, I'm going to let you speak to it. This was setting you up for the next question to be like, it has to be reciprocal, right?
So I'm gonna just say some years ago or whatever, I wasn't in a great place mentally, and there was a lot of things going on, a lot of anxiety and everything else. And Walt came over so we always were working together when we were working at Mesmer Catholic Schools, but he worked at the other campus. When he came over to that campus, it really put a battery in my back. It's like that the younger man's energy to take a chance on this, to get out there and try something. Because I was, kind of hesitant to pull a trigger on a few things. And when Walt came over, and he just was always energetic, always with a good word for me, always was like, man, this young dude really is like revitalizing me right now. So it has been a reciprocal effect for us. It's really been beneficial or whatever, because sometimes where I get stuck, he see a solution, and it's just like, man, I need to tap into that energy. I need to feel that. I need to try to get that back in my life. Because of Walt is the exercising every day. Now I'm more serious about doing that. We both got sons that are in sports, and so we try to get our sons together to try to train with them, but also just let them have a little fun with each other and things like that. And that's therapeutic to be able to sit there and watch them grow and learn and take some of his basketball strategies or whatever. I'm not as good as he is. You know what I mean? I got a little entertainment.
Too generous. But guess what else I hear about this? You also, at an early age, teaching them how to create that circle that you talked about.
Absolutely.
Those people that you have around, you're starting to create that now with some intention behind it, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's an amazing situation.
And I got different people for different things. You tap in with some people.
Yes.
I got like we talked about with the Bly sons. Ramel, my guy, I know if I go to him, he's going to give it to me black and white. Sometimes I need to hear it black and white, right? But sometimes I need a little gray. So I need to go sometimes and be like, okay, let me find the middle ground. I can tap in the wall when I need to find the middle ground. But I got other people where it's just like, okay, I need this today. So I'm going to tap in with that. But I try to stay current and tapping in with everybody because it's just important. You never know what, like you said, with checking in with your brothers on the Wednesdays, you just never know how that something that simple is a helpful thing, and you might like kickstart something again for that particular person. And so it's really important to continuously check in with each other, because again, that strong silent type, Steve just talked about it. You feel like you're so strong that you want to, I'm gonna just do it myself. And I've been in that situation so many times, and it's just like, you know what? Don't do this by yourself.
Right.
Check in with somebody, at least ask, try to figure out what's going on so that you don't have to feel like all that weight is on your shoulders by yourself.
So Steve, like when you are out like doing your work and you're dealing with people who are in a vulnerable position, how do they receive that help coming from you?
First and foremost, I try to come off and as genuine as possible. I really want them to know that I'm there for them, but that takes time sometimes. But what I do is I go into my own story. Like, look, I was in your position.
Come on.
I was just messed up like some years ago.
Give them that hope.
Yeah,
be real with them, vulnerable.
You got to be real with them. You can't just sell them some kind of fairy tale.
Come on. And you don't get no realer than WNOV 860 AM, 106.5. Caller, we see you on the line. We're going to get you as soon as we come back in. So please hold on for us. You're listening to Nyumba Upendo Show again on WNOV. We'll see you in a few minutes.
An official message from Medicare. Couple more minutes and we'll start this month's book club.
I usually love a plot twist, but this year I'm comparing my options during Medicare open enrollment.
You can't assume your current health or drug plan is the best one for you.
And you got to make sure your drugs are covered. That's important.
So is saving money.
Review all your options at Medicare.gov. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Mom's House of Barbecue Soul Food Buffet, 3510 West Villard Avenue, is serving up tender, slow-smoked rib tips, shoulder, fried chicken, pork chops that's smothered or not. Mom's House of Barbecue Soul Food Restaurant specializes in turkey chops and specialty drinks. You'll find hearty, stretch-bait sides that's hard to resist, like creamy mac and cheese, spaghetti mac, yams, beans, greens, collards, cabbage. I don't know. Check out the vegetable Minneapolis, when you go 3510 West Villard Avenue, call ahead for quick pickup at 414-988-0242. Sunday's homemade dressing ready to satisfy with customized catering for your holiday, family dining, or special occasions. Mom House of Barbecue Soul Food Buffet, 35th and Villard, open Tuesdays through Sunday and Sunday noon to 7 p.m. Call for quick carry-out 414-988-0242. That's 414-988-0242.
Hey, Milwaukee, get ready for a breath of fresh air with Community Heartbeat, your go-to show for health and wellness in our vibrant city. Tune in the last Friday of every month to join us on a journey toward a healthier Milwaukee. Community Heartbeat is not just a show, it's a movement dedicated to bringing our community together through wellness. Call in during our live show the last Friday of every month from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Share your thoughts on social media.
Here we go.
It's time. WNOV, 860 AM. You're listening to Nyumba Upendo. And as we promised, we got a caller on the line. We're going to give you 30 seconds for a question, 60 seconds for a comment because we're closing in. Dr. Ward, is that you?
She's a nurse, makes plenty of money. But she couldn't pay for them 3 cars.
Dr. Ward. Okay, we're gonna have to go. We tried to wait. We must have waited too long because he was in deep conversation. I was almost nervous when Mike came out of that. But no, we here with Steve, Will, and Ward, and we just, as this time goes by, it goes by so quickly. So we hopefully y'all come back on sometime. We can finish these conversations.
Went way too fast, right?
Anything, but just want to give you like that time to give like your final thoughts, question, comments for the listening audience.
Don't do it by yourself. Tap in with your community.
It ain't got to be quick. I see you rush.
No,
take
just
your time.
I talk a lot, like my man said, so I want to make sure I give everybody a little space. But don't do it by yourself. But always, for me, one of the biggest things is always, like Steve had talked about, I always try to go back to my foundation, which is Jesus Christ. So I always try to go back to prayer. I always try to go back to my word and try to figure out how does that tie into what I got going on right now. And always trying to stay appreciative of the fact that I've done a lot of things that for somebody who may been thought that they were an average guy or this or that, I made it to this particular point, by sticking with it, by continuing on. But again, always having a great group of guys. I forgot to mention my 2 brothers or whatever, Waris Holloway and Wilbur Holloway. And Wilbur Holloway was my older brother, so I always kind of looked to him, and he always tried to stay on the straight and narrow, and so I always tried to emulate that. It didn't work, but I tried it. And so just always pouring back into your community, and then that's the other thing. Give back to somebody else. Find a way to take your situation and say, you know what, I can use this to be able to help somebody else. And so that's my main things.
Well,
I would say be intentional in your reflection. Really, really be reflective. Look at how far you've come. Try to be as present as you can in the moment as well, and extend yourself grace through it all. Because we sometimes find ourselves beating ourselves up over mistakes we've made, shortcomings, being late for things, dropping the ball on some things like that. But also just being gracious with yourself, while also being open to that mind and having a mindset of collaboration. Just like we're doing here now, meeting new people, be open to that so you can be a resource. So if someone comes to you, you may not have the answer. I might be able to, shift them over to you, shift over to Steve. My wheels are already spinning in regards to some things we do in the summer with my boy Victor Sloan for Steve to get on to, and I'm all about that. So I really think that the collaboration piece is huge, especially here in Milwaukee. I don't want to work in silos. I don't believe in that.
Come on.
That's another reason why I know we on your podcast, but we also have a podcast. I do a podcast as well called What's Your Motive? Because I want people to come together instead of us always doing things so individualistically, because we can go further together. I know that's a cliche, and I like to stay away from those things.
I'm just waiting for our call for the podcast.
I'm
just waiting for
Hey, trust and believe that's already been talks about that. So be expecting a call or an email for sure.
No doubt.
But those are some of the things for sure, especially just for our community. We need to collaborate.
Brother Steve.
To that piece, prayer, unity, having that healthy dialogue, good support system, and just, when you feeling at your lowest in life, just leaning on somebody who's strong at that time, because there's strong people out here who need people to lean on as well. Y'all lean on each other, and if we all showing that love, it's definitely going to help our community. So I say that in closing.
Wow, that's beautiful. We celebrated at the beginning with my birthday. But what you don't know is that, unfortunately, I lost my dad on my birthday.
Oh, wow.
And during that time, I had to try to fill the void and fill the gap and, intentionally try to find peace and happiness, even though to continue to celebrate life. And I wanted to end my comments by just saying, Steve, Will, Walt, you have blessed me today with this conversation, and I'm positive that someone in the listening audience has been blessed as well. And I just, my mom normally prays, but I'm just saying a prayer that you continue to have the strength, the guidance, the intuitiveness to be able to do the work that you do for the children, for the men here in Milwaukee and wherever you are. So I'm just so grateful to be in your presence and to have met you. I just thank you.
Likewise.
Really appreciate that. Thank
Walt,
you
Will,
very
Steve,
much.
thank you so very much again. We want to thank Desmond Smith of Uniting Garden Homes, Michelle Glenn on winning that turkey. And what we just said, hey, your children going to love you. They're going to make excuses for you. Then they get sad, mad. Then they just don't want to deal with you. But remember, that last stage is reconciliation. So fathers, wherever you may be, think about where you at and see how you can make it better. We're going to see you next week on Nyumba Upendo, WNOV 860 AM, 106.5 FM, the voice of Milwaukee.
You're listening to